All right, and so okay, let's get started. So FinCEN residential real estate reporting rule. So we're going to go over really what it is, how it affects you, what information we need. So what real estate agents need to know in Florida, and it's effective as of March 1st, 2026. I thought this picture was like right on tee with it. I don't want to be a grown-up anymore. There's too much paperwork. If you've heard me talk about FinCEN, then you know there are 1,100 data points that the buyer has to submit for this. So this could not be more accurate. But the good thing is we're going to show you guys how you're affected as real estate agents and what you need to do on your end, if anything. Okay, so what is FinCEN? FinCEN is the Financial Crimes. Let me move my thing over here. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's the U.S. Treasury. Okay, so the rule was created to increase transparency in residential real estate transactions and prevent money laundering through real estate purchases. I promise this will be the least painful compliance training you attend this year, or at least I hope so. We don't have big changes like this very often, but when we do, I guess it's go big or go home, right? Okay, so the purpose is, like I just said, to prevent money laundering, increase transparency in real estate ownership, and track certain residential real estate transfers. So if it is a commercial land, which we'll talk about a little bit more, commercial properties are exempt. Effective date. This did take effect as of March 1st of 2026. We had something similar to this, and it was called GTO, Geographic Targeting Orders. That ended February 28th, 2026, because this has taken place of that. This new rule does apply nationwide. And GTO, if you have ever had a transaction that was affected by that, it was limited on the purchase price and county, and it was very easy to become exempt on that. So FinCEN has become wide. There's just it's a lot more broader than GTO was. Okay. Mm. All right, next. Oop, let me go back. All right, so simple trigger test, real quick. Just this picture was cute too. It says, well, the boss told us to launder the money, didn't he? And he's putting it in the washing machine. So I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, so a FinCEN report is generally required when all of these are true. Residential property, buyer is an entity or trust, no traditional bank mortgage. We have a property right now that we are handling, and they are going through a lender. It is not seller financing, but the lender does not report to the financial, and I don't know the exact name of it. It's on my note somewhere. So if Misty wants to add on to that.
It's like a non-traditional finance lender, a non-AML lender.
AML, yeah. So we asked them if they reported to the AML, and they said no. So FinCEN has to apply on that transaction. So if it's like a Chase Bank or a Suncoast or, something big like that, New Res, we know that it's not going to happen. We know that those people are going to be reporting. So our examples are cash, hard money, private loan, or seller financing. If all three are true, a FinCEN report is likely required. That is up to your title company at that point to determine that in the closing process. So what does not trigger it? Most traditional home purchases will not trigger this rule because one, they're purchasing in their personal name, a buyer. The buyer is using a traditional bank mortgage, or it is a commercial property. Some exemptions also exist, such as transfers due to death or divorce. Those are rare and in between, but those are some of the exemptions that come into place where we can cross out FinCEN. I want to keep this in mind too. We have, if you have a buyer who is using money from their HELOC refinance. And on your end, you're like, okay, this is a loan. They have to take out this money. On our end, that's a cash because they're taking out money and then they're sending it to us. So if they're purchasing in an entity, FinCEN will apply. There are tons of questions that you guys are going to have on these things. If you have any concerns at all and you have a buyer that's purchasing, please just reach out to us and let us know. And if you get an addendum that they're switching from individual to a trust or to an LLC, Keep in mind that FinCEN could apply at that point, and we have to allow time for our third party to be able to get all of this information. If you guys have been on the Tuesday meetings and hear me talk about this, you know that there's absolutely no exception. Nobody looks good in orange. We will not close unless we have all this information. All right, so we're gonna do a quick giveaway. Let me pull up because I don't see my chat anywhere. So give me just a second.
We do have a question, Megan, and it says, which I'm glad this was asked because when this all started, my first thought was, oh, well, then they can just purchase it in their personal name and then quit claim deed it after closing into their LLC or entity. If they do that, your buyer is still not going to be able to get around the FinCEN reporting because then whoever is preparing that deed, so like let's say Danny Escanos from our business was to prepare that quitclaim deed for the client, then he would have to report FinCEN. So your buyer would still have to fill out all of those touch points for the FinCEN rule.
And the purpose of FinCEN is to avoid money laundering, right? So they want to know who this individual is. So if I buy it as Meghan Dukett as individual and I close and then I transfer it via a quitclaim deed to an LLC, 123 Gulf Boulevard LLC, and there is money laundering taking place, they know who the individual is. And that's the point of it. A lot of times when people are doing things like this, they have an LLC whose registered agent is an LLC, whose registered agent is an LLC, and it goes on and on and on. So it's hard at that point to determine who's the individual that's responsible. So this is to be able to figure out who is going to be responsible for this, who's taking the fall on that. I have a buyer paying cash that triggers the report. So it will only trigger the report, Michael, if the buyer is in an LLC or an entity, a trust, anything like that. Um, what about if they do the quit claim themselves, not hiring an attorney or have it recorded at the courthouse? They can do that. So we had this question because Craig was asking this question downstairs, and I called Andrea, she is our manager of the network transaction department, who is the ones who are going to be sending out the links for FinCEN when we have those. Um, and she said that because there's no money being transferred, like they don't have to report themselves. But if they close as an individual with us, then we're also not reporting. So I'm gonna do the giveaway real quick. Let's see. All right, so giveaway time. Which transaction likely triggers FinCEN? A buyer purchasing in their personal name with cash. B, buyer purchasing through an LLC and a bank mortgage. C, buyer purchasing through an LLC with seller financing. All right, you guys are getting it. Yes, C is it. Buyer purchasing through an LLC with seller financing. So A won't apply because they're purchasing in their personal name. B won't apply because it's a bank mortgage. So Sarah McIntyre at the Beaches, you have won this giveaway. So I'll touch base with you after the call. Congratulations. You guys are killing it. Yeah, most of you guys said A, and that's amazing. I'm sorry, most of you guys said C. Jimmy looks like he said A, but I think he just may be testing us. Okay, all right, let me answer some of your questions real quick and then we'll get back into the slides. Misty, do you know if it applies for a 1031?
I think the 1031 is exempt, but I'm not certain, so I will get that information and we'll
Look into that one more.
yep. Yep.
All right. What about if they do a quick claim themselves? Oh, we did that one. Even if the buyers buy in personal name and then transfer to an LLC, FinCEN is triggered, correct? I don't believe so. And I can check on that as well. But when Craig was down here and we were talking and we called Andrea, because there was no money being transferred for the quitclaim deed, she said at that point FinCEN wouldn't be applicable. But I will get that answer questioned as well. Okay. Perfect. Next one. All right. Um, mm, mm, mm. All right, so for reportable transactions, settlement must collect additional information during the process of the file. This includes ownership information for the entities, trust information, identification documents, and source of funds used for the transaction. If you have an LLC and there's certain owners or trusts with different owners, all of these have to be listed. All right. FinCEN requires documentation of the source of funds used for the transaction, including the earnest money, closing funds, and purchase funds. So if they are sending 5 separate wire transfers for closing, we need to know exactly what bank all 5 wires are coming from. We send out a link to the buyer and the seller to complete this information. That comes from Network Transaction Solutions. That is our department that's handling FinCEN. In that link, they will be able to input all of the data that we require to submit to FinCEN. This is some of that. So if a buyer shows up with a suitcase full of cash, we're probably going to ask a few questions. Okay, we need to know where this money is coming from.
I've actually had that happen before many years ago.
I've had people joke about it. I've actually never seen it happen. They're like, okay, I'll just show up with the briefcase. No, let's don't do that, guys. All right. So in most cases, settlement will send the buyer a secure link to complete a short online compliance form. Simple structures can take about 5 minutes to complete. More complex entity structures may take longer. Encourage your buyers to complete the form quickly so the closing process stays on track. Your sellers will also receive a link and they have to complete identification information. On the buyer side, it's identification information and where the money is coming from. So this is the information that's required for the individual for each, if there's more than one person under that LLC or trust, for each individual, their legal name, date of birth, home address, social security number, government ID, and then also we need the source of funds information. I have a file that is switched over to FinCEN and it's supposed to close next week. So we had to send out this link to get everything done. Sellers refusing to extend if it's not all completed. So we had explained to the agents, unfortunately, there's no exceptions into this. The link can take 5 minutes if your client's completed in a timely manner, or it can get dragged on. It's all about your clients. It's been released. They just need to complete it. Sellers completed it already. It's just waiting for the buyer. So we get updates as well. We will get updates every 5 days on what is still needed. So like, for example, on this file, it said buyer information not completed, seller information completed, and it was in green. As the closing date gets closer, we'll get updates more frequently. And if information is still needed, then the processing team at that point will reach out to you to let your clients know we need this information. Now, I do want to stress that every title company is different on how they're going to handle this procedure. This is how we are handling it in Florida Agency Network. We have created a department and it rolls out March 1st. There was no, let's try this and, a soft rollout and let's see if we can get it, which is what I've explained to you guys as well. So if you do have a file that has FinCEN and you have feedback, please send that over. Please let us know. Is it working? Is there something that we can fix to make it easier? We want all the feedback that you can give us too, so that way we can get those kinks worked out, since that's not something we could have done because it wasn't effective until March 1st. All right. So in most cases, settlement was sent. Oh, I just went over that. So this is the process and timing. We sent the secure link to the client. The client completes the form. The information is collected before closing. Once we close, the department, Network Transaction Solutions, is alerted that the file is closed and they submit it for reporting. They have 30 days from the day of closing to be able to report this till FinCEN. So who files the reporting? One is your closing or settlement agent. closing statement preparer, recorder of the deed, title underwriter, and funds disperser. This is just coming from actual FinCEN. When you're dealing with Paramount Title or a brand under Florida Agency Network, it's going to be your closing settlement agent. We're going to get all that information collected, and then we're going to get that reported. Most of the time, it's handled by the title settlement company. But like I said, every title company is different. So is there a change or issues with investors that they want to buy every property in LLC with cash and still provide proper documentations? It won't be an issue with that, Reva. It's going to be a change. So once those files come over, they have to complete their information in FinCEN. And we have quite a few investors that we deal with on the regular who buy in their LLC. And my question was, do they have to do this every single time? And they do, but the system that we're using is going to save their information. So if I had an LLC, Meghan Dukett LLC, and I bought 123 Gulf Boulevard, and I completed all that information for the first time. Next month, I went and bought 456 Gulf Boulevard. Our system's going to keep all my information so I can just review it and approve and submit. I don't have to refill it out, but I still get the link to confirm everything because things can change. The banking information may not be from the same place. You could have moved, your primary address is different. Sometimes people have LLCs for each individual property. So it will need to report it each time as long as they're buying cash and they're in an entity. Yes, most flippers will be required because they're buying in that entity. Okay. So what agent should tell their clients? Let's see. I also want to touch back on the who files the report. It's really important to know that real estate agents, you do not file this report. So yes, I need you to be knowledgeable for your clients. It's great to have that, but you are not the ones reporting it. So it could be one of those things where you know a little bit, you know to get to the surface, but if you need to go more into the core, reach out to me or India or your title company and ask those different questions. This is a really touchy matter and it is very in depth. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. So what agent should tell their clients? You can ask two questions. Are you buying in the name of are in your name an LLC or a trust? Two, will you use a bank mortgage, cash, private, or financing? As soon as you have these two questions that you probably ask your buyers on every single deal, you'll know if FinCEN is going to apply. So if it's entity or trust and no bank mortgage, expect that compliance form. Expect that they're going to have to complete this information and prepare them for that. And if they've got any questions at that point, reach out so we can get that going for them. All right, so the FinCEN rule is simply a new compliance step in certain transactions. But again, there are absolutely no exceptions to this rule. If it applies, the information is required to close. Agents do not file the report, but understanding when it applies helps buyers and sellers avoid delay. Encourage clients to respond quickly if they receive a compliance form from the settlement. If you ever have a transaction where you're unsure whether FinCEN applies, feel free to reach out to me. You guys know I'm here for all of your questions. And then we actually do have materials and resources on our Florida agency website. It's in this link here. I'm going to push that out with this presentation today so you have it. It is going to be updated as we get more materials and resources. So it's a good reference and resource page for you. So I'll send that link out with the PowerPoint. But does anybody have any additional questions on FinCEN? I would
I
love to
have
know
I have some
what,
once you're done. You finish your that
okay.
question.
I would love to know what the experience is like with the buyer with Paramount. Just did this with another title company. We basically had to do everything and they could not help answer questions. Thanks so much, Megan and Danny, for helping out. You're welcome, Sarah. And I know that that one was really hard on you. And I just could be biased because I love where I work, but the ones that I have had, I feel like have been extremely smooth. Yes, we prepared as much as we could for this to come out. And I've had a couple where they've jumped in the link and we've had it back, no problem. It's really easy to complete the link and get it back, which is why I love that we have this department. Because our upper management wanted to make sure that this process was easy on their closers and processors, which helped tremendously. So I just may be a little biased there, but I feel as though it was dealing with Paramount at FinCEN. I think it would be a lot easier than going with a title company who is reporting themselves as the closer or processor, but also bear with the title companies because nobody could roll this out until March 1st. So they could also just be working through their process and trying to work out all the kinks in it.
And we also one another thing that we're offering is it's like a help desk. So through the service, we have a help desk where if we have a buyer that's stuck and on their data points and isn't sure what to fill out or what information should go in a prompt, um, they're going to be available via phone. So that's going to be one thing that definitely sets us apart, I do believe.
Yeah, and Sarah, the questions that you sent me the other day, I could answer a few of them, but not all of them. So I did send that over to Andrea, and she's the head of this department. Andrea and Nancy are the head, and she answered them for me. So she was able to get all those answers for you. The link that they get, so we send out first a disclaimer, and it just kind of gives all the clients and agents a heads up, like, hey, FinCEN applies. This is what to expect. Be ready. And then it goes to our network transaction department, network transaction solutions department, and they send out the link to the client. And from what I'm seeing on the client's end, you just click on that link and yeah, you just fill in the information that they ask for and you submit it.
Philip Callahan has a question.
What happens when the artifacts are submitted? Is there a go, no go decision that will receive? So, Philip, it doesn't actually get reported until the transaction close. So the buyer is completing all this information for us to be able to collect all the data. At the time of closing, once everything is funded out, our department is alerted at that point that they can report FinCEN. So you won't ever get a notice that it's a yes or a no. It'll be reported, and if anything else is needed, we would reach back out to the clients to be able to gather that information to get it submitted. Jimmy, what question did you have?
Okay, I have a few things and some talking points real quick since we have a few minutes. So,
Okay.
first question I have, you said they send out a short form, right? That they're going to fill out and do. Is there a way we can get an idea of what that looks like? So, what kind of questions are asked so that way, if we have investors and we're talking through some of those things, we can give them more information. Again, I know we're not the title company, we're not doing all these things, but I think knowledge is powerful. Try not to go too crazy with everything that's included, but have an idea of what is going to be asked about. And then I talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, too, when we talk about time frame of how long it takes to fill out. Is it 100 questions? Is it 5 questions? Is it 20 questions? To get an idea, because Kelly touched and put in the chat, hey, will this end up being something we need to allow time for, right? And so my talking point on that section, and this is directly to Kelly, but for all of you, if you have investors or you have entities that you're going to be working with, it's probably important to understand that certain things extra are going to need to happen to get us to the closing table. Now, I may not slow anything up, but it's all on the buyer filling out that information and getting it in as early as possible. I think it's also important to even let our sellers know that these are things that are happening. I'm don't not on the lines of saying, "Hey, it's going to slow down a transaction," because I don't want to say that. But my question would be, if I have a cash deal that's in an entity and they want to close in a week, is that something that can still happen, or
It
should we be
can.
looking at?
It can still happen. So, the actual link can take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to fill out. Now, if you have an LLC where there's four different people and you have to complete all of that information with five different wire transfers, then yeah, it's going to take a little bit
Yeah.
more time. But we have one right now. The buyer is an LLC. She's the only owner. Her money's coming from one bank. and it took 3 minutes to complete it. So as long, it depends on the complexity of what they're inputting.
Right.
But I'm gonna see, and I will get with Misty too and that team to see if maybe we can get a mock link to kind of see what all is being asked. And the sellers will have to complete something on the link too. A
Okay.
lot less, just identification.
Awesome. So again, I
Um,
think that's important to understand. And I think Sarah put in there, it took my buyer like an hour or so because they had to pull in all of that information. So if we understand kind of what some of that is, let them go through. Just know it's just another thing in a transaction that if we're staying on top of with our buyers and our sellers to making sure this has happened, we're going to get to the closing table regardless, right?
Absolutely.
But understand that could be a hiccup that does happen, and
Mhm.
we need to just still be prepared for when that actually happens.
Yeah, and
So I
think
think
of it
that's
like
good.
a flow chart too. So when these buyers are getting this link, it'll ask a question. Depending on whether it's yes or no or what the answer is, it may lead you to another prompt that will lead you to five more prompts. So
Right.
it's not necessarily like, everybody's asked all of the same information. So it's just different prompts. It's like a flow chart, if you will.
And I have
And
that chart too, Misty, that I can push out with this material that
oh,
kind of
perfect.
will, it shows the first initial question, yes, no, and then it divvies down. So
Right.
I'll send that out too as material.
Yeah,
And
and
then
the
also,
seller,
okay,
what the
no,
sellers
you're good.
ask for is more high level information. I mean, it's like what's your, social, marital status, name, high level information. It's not as in depth as what the buyers are being hit with.
And again, not everybody's using the network for this. So just again, being prepared and understanding which, if you are using an investor, an LLC, we have that option for the buyer to choose title and stuff like that. And if you want a seamless transaction with a proven company that we know is doing it the right way, that we're still learning through it and stuff like that. I'm just saying that's an option that we actually have. Now we had a couple other questions that popped in. Um, let's see, where was Samsung did something earlier. So, what a non-conforming loan from a lender using an LLC trigger?
It should.
Yes.
It should.
And then we have if it's purchased in a personal name and a new owner goes to the tax office and does a quick claim, no issue.
I
Question
don't
mark.
believe so from the conversation I've had with Andrea when Craig asked that question, but I'm going to get confirmation on that as well as the 1031. And when I send out the PowerPoint and the links, I'll make sure those two questions are answered in there as well. Do
And
all members,
I would also not be going to an investor, say buy it in your name and then go do a quick claim deed afterwards because it's not gonna trigger you to fill out all of this information and stuff like that either. Like, don't advise something like that.
if nothing fishy is going on your buyer side, if they are purchasing this property as an investor, as a flip, this link and this process should be no problem.
Yes.
And I agree, Jimmy. Do not give illegal advice like that.
Yep.
Keep
Do not.
yourself out of hot water,
Oh, I have no
please.
idea if that's gonna work or not. Thank you. Yeah.
Do
And then
all members of the LLC get a separate link? I don't know that. Misty, do you know that, or should I add that to the parking lot?
Add that to the question list. I'm not sure, but we'll find out for you.
All right, I've got 3 questions to get back with you guys on. Does anybody else have any other questions?
I have one more just kind of comment that I think could be important. Again, we went through a lot of changes the last year and a half with certain things, with its buyer representation, things like that. We were always ahead of it, and we've done very well with those things, right? So this could be a talking point that you guys can get out there, guys and gals. Like this is a talking point, and it's not just about, hey, there's new rules, you're screwed, they're going to stop you from laundering money. There's new rules and regulations in place. If you're an investor, reach out to me if you want to learn more about it, especially right now when we're getting into the heat of the season where you're going to have more people buying properties. This is just another talking point that you can actually put out there in the world so people can see that you have the knowledge behind what you're talking about. And who knows, maybe someone, oh, wow, I didn't even really realize something like that was happening. I'm getting ready to buy 3 houses and flip them, whatever that might look like.
And look how, just by that, how much more skilled you are compared to other
Yes,
agents because you've got
100%.
that knowledge. Captain Curtis asked, must be included in dot loop. So I believe, not in dot loop, but I believe it is now part of the contract.
I mean, it's
I
in, let me see,
think there's a portion of it on the contract.
FinCEN. Let me check. If you guys don't mind, hold on a second. There's definitely FinCEN verbiage in the contract. But I don't know if it says that they have to fill all that stuff out. So give me one second. Let me see. Craig,
Okay.
you probably know what line it is on.
Or Joe. Is Joe on here? Joe would know. He just did his contract class.
Yeah, it's kind of towards the. I remember seeing it. I don't know why I can't remember. FinCEN survey.
467.
I was almost there. So 467 in the contract states that requires certain residential real estate transactions without institutional lender financing, where at least one buyer transfer is a legal entity, limited liability, partnership, blah, 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 beginning March 1st, 2026. Tell you what, let's just do this real quick. Let me just show it since we're in here.
Perfect.
So it's in, this is the as is contract. So it's,
Just gonna still do it today, no later than the day before closing.
yeah. All right. Let's see. Screen two. So basically here on line 467, it talks about that starting on March 1st, and then it basically just states, no, what did you say, Chris? I didn't read it all. No more than 5 days?
1 day prior to closing.
Okay, no later than 1 day prior to closing, this needs to be filled out. Provide,
And buyer shall be responsible for all costs and fees associated.
and buyer shall be responsible for all costs and fees and charges the closing agent may charge to file the FinCEN report.
And our department does have a fee for it. I don't have those up, but it's on our affiliated business arrangement forms that your clients
Perfect.
complete. There is an extra charge for a rush. So if we have that cash transaction that's closing in a week, you will have the rush fee. And then there's just the normal turnaround time. Do we
And then
need
Carla, this is the new contract. So if you use a new as is contract right now, you will have this verbiage in here. And this was done on, I mean, this was revised the 26th, so last month, February 26th. Sorry.
perfect?
Yeah, so just be aware the contract gives the buyer the right to do this 1 day prior to closing to provide title with all the names, contact information, and everything that they request. It gives them the right to do that, but they're also responsible for any and all fees associated with that. And you're hearing Megan tell you if they wait until the day prior to closing, they're going to have to pay additional fees for rush fees. So just because the contract gives them the right to do that doesn't mean it's not going to cost them. So this should be done immediately. If you have a buyer that's in an LLC or anything this applies to, do it immediately to avoid any issues, any fees that may pop up for that.
And does this affect if I had a contract at the end of February and it's
Yes.
closing in March?
If the closing date is
So if you have any
after March
closings
1st.
after March 1st, they're going to be sent this new link for them to fill out.
Yes. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, just to be clear, whose door the Fed show up if the transaction is deemed fishy? The buyers. But the problem is, this is the reason for the link. It goes back to finding out who that individual is. So this
Right.
reasoning is to find out who is responsible and whose door they are going to show up at. So it's going to probably cancel out a lot of who do I have to talk to because they're going to know.
I mean, and honestly, you may have people that not buying properties now because they were doing something fishy and have to go through all of these steps to find out where it is, the ones that were laundering the money and doing all that stuff. So just know that this is just a new regulation that we have to use, that we have to follow, and just be prepared to be able to speak to it and let your sellers and buyers know that they're going to have things that they need to fill out. If it makes it more comfortable when you go under contract, to make sure you hit on that paragraph, especially if they are an entity like an LLC, to make sure that you're kind of hitting those things. It looks like we got the fees are $345 for normal and 400, basically 395 for a rush. So get that in as soon as possible. Have your buyers do it as soon as possible, and add that to your critical date timeline to ensure that they're, because it is in the contract now for the day before that it has to be done. So that's just another piece that we just need to follow up and make sure with our buyers they're getting it taken care of, and sellers since they have something they have to fill out too.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, I hope you have a
Right.
wonderful day. Sarah, I'm going to get with you on your gift card. Congratulations. And then I will get your answers to your questions and get them all out to you guys.
All right. Thank you all. Happy
You're very
Thursday.
welcome. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
See ya.